Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day, all Bills all the time. And now Matt Bovee and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
Well, happy early Thanksgiving, everyone, and welcome to another episode of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Matt Bovee, Sal Capaccio, getting you ready for a very big week of Buffalo Bills football. I know you could say they're all big at this point because they are, but this one feels like there's some magnitude to it because of the way the Texans game went, because of the playoff picture. You know, right now, I think we all think the Bills are going to make the playoffs, but if this game does not go the way Bills fans are hoping it does, we're going to be having a very different conversation this week. So how about that for leading off an episode? Welcome, everybody. Sal, how are you, sir?
Doing great. You know, I'm thinking about the standings. I'm looking at them. And yeah, if the Bills happen to drop this game and the Texans win this week, the Bills will be in the 9th seed in the AFC. 9. Then only 7 make the playoffs, obviously, as everybody knows. What's hurting the Bills, too, is their conference record. The Chargers are at 5. The Jags are at 6. The Bills are at 7. All have 7-4 records, but the Chargers are 6-2 in the conference. Jacksonville's 4-2 in the conference. Buffalo's 4-3. So, I mean, on top of everything, you're fighting with teams that you're trying to position yourself with tiebreakers. This is a monster game for head-to-head between the Steelers and Bills. It's a monster game for tiebreakers with other teams, because even if you finish like in a 3-way tie, you can throw out head-to-head, but then you go to conference record. So, yeah, Matt, it's not an understatement to say this is a massive game for the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's a massive game, but it's not a must win, because I do think that, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I think must win gets thrown around a little bit too loosely, and it's a very, very big game. And, you know, the playoff chances, you look at like the New York Times playoff predictor, it goes up to like 90-something% if they win this game. You'd feel really, really good. If they lose, you're down to like 60%, and that's, you know, a coin flip. And I know we were in a similar position 2 years ago when we didn't know at this point if the Bills were going to make the playoffs, and then they got on an absolute heater and they stormed back and they were able to sneak in as the 2 seed. I just don't see that happening anymore because of where the division is right now and the stranglehold that the that the Patriots currently have on it. So yeah, I think it's a really, really big game. And obviously this is an opportunity for the Bills offense to get back on track, which I think brings us to the big news of the day. We are recording this on Tuesday evening. The Bills will return to practice on Wednesday. And when they return to practice, there will be a new wide receiver on the field. It is Brandin Cooks, the longtime veteran in the NFL, 32-year-old wide receiver. Sal, is this a big deal?
Well, I think it's a big deal for what it represents for the Bills trying to do something. I don't know if he's going to be a big deal. I don't know if he's going to help the team at all. By the way, I don't know if I've ever known anybody named Brandon who spelled their name Brandin. It's a little different way to spell it. So Brandin Cooks, who has been traded 4 times in his NFL career. This isn't a trade. This is a signing. Tied with Eric Dickerson, the Hall of Fame running back, for the most ever times traded ever in the NFL, which is a crazy stat. And I told that to Yana, my wife, earlier tonight, and she said, well, is there a reason for that? And I'm like, well, I guess he's always been good enough that everybody wants him, but not great enough that everybody cares to keep him all the time, right? I mean, it's just one of those deals where he's a good player. He fits in. He knows a lot of systems. I did find a tie-in, by the way, to a Bills coach, and that is Ronald Curry was in New Orleans with him in 2016. Ronald Curry is now the Bills quarterbacks coach. He was an offensive assistant. So maybe a little bit of, hey, what's this guy like? Been around him a little bit. He does offer speed, but Matt, he's 32 years old. I just don't know at this point how much you can really gain from inserting Brandin Cooks into your lineup. But what I mean by it's a big deal for what it represents, it just shows that Brandon Beane is trying anything he can, and he has very, very limited options to try anything he can.
It's more evidence that the wide receiver room is not nearly good enough, and that it will continue to be a talking point throughout the rest of this season and throughout the entire offseason, as it should be. So when, you know, they tried to pour cold water on that months and months and months ago, clearly this room has not lived up to the expectations that the front office had set for them. Here's the thing about the Brandin Cooks move. I don't care. Like, it, to me, Okay, go try it. See if it works. See if you get lucky, or see if you strike lightning in a bottle a little bit and you get some production out of him. If it doesn't work, okay, whatever. At least you tried something. I don't think that this is going to be, the key to unlock the success for the Buffalo Bills offense, but I have no issue with them taking a flyer on somebody and just seeing maybe he's going to be a little bit more productive than some of the other disappointing players that they have had inside that room. I think that I'm interested to see how this pieces together with Gabe Davis, because Gabe Davis is going to also go to the active roster at some point. Brandin Cooks immediately goes to the active roster. I would imagine that's probably because there was other interest from other teams, and the Bills did not have the luxury of stashing him away on the practice squad. I would imagine to get him to commit to coming to Buffalo, they probably needed to say, yeah, you're going right on the 53-man roster. And with the injuries at the position and the lack of confidence it feels like they have in Keon Coleman, I think there's a chance we see him on Sunday.
Yeah, I just actually, if I can ask our producer Mike Robbie, I just put the roster up. There you go. Let's check this out. Here it is. If you're watching at Sal Sports, obviously on YouTube, if you can see us. If not, we will explain. The Bills have 7 wide receivers on their active roster right now. 7. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, Tyrell Shavers, and Brandin Cooks. That's not counting Gabe Davis, who's on the practice squad, who, as you, I think, rightfully said, he's going to get elevated again and then signed eventually, we think. That's not counting Mecole Hardman, who has 3 games left to be on injured reserve, and they signed him to return punts, and he's a speedy guy, so we'll see where that goes. Let's even throw him out because maybe he's just not even going to play for the team. Who knows? They just decide, hey, it wasn't worth it. That said, you still have to make moves. Something's got to happen here at wide receiver. I don't know what that is. Curtis Samuel, he's been in and out of the lineup. We'll find out about his injury status later this week. Elijah Moore, he's been in and out of the lineup as far as a inactive, active. And then there's the big Keon Coleman question, which you just rightfully brought up. I would say that it's tougher. It's tougher for me to see Brandin Cooks active on Sunday, but it's certainly not out of the question. Matt, I just don't know how this roster shakes out with all of this.
Yeah, I wonder if this is an off-ramp for Curtis Samuel. I wonder if they put him on injured reserve and they almost cut their losses, and this is the last we see of Curtis Samuel, or if they would even consider just cutting him outright. I don't think that would happen, but I could see a world where they put him on IR and then they reevaluate things in 4 weeks when they, have a little bit of a clearer outlook on where their roster stands, who is performing, who is not performing. But it feels like they're going to have to do something, because I do really think that Gabe Davis is going back to the 53 at some point. So at that point, you need to make a move. And after what Tyrell Shavers did, I don't feel like you can move on from Tyrell Shavers. I don't think that, I would say Elijah Moore is the other name to keep an eye on, but I like Elijah more than I like Curtis Samuel at this point. Great. So that's kind of why I think IR to Curtis Samuel is going to be the next move we see.
Let's talk about what Brandin Cooks can actually bring to this team, because what they need is a guy who can separate quickly, a guy who can offer answers earlier in the down for the Buffalo Bills. What we saw on Thursday was the result of not having that happen. When Josh Allen had the ball in his hands, there's nothing available early. He's scrambling around. He's got to sit back there for a minute. The stat that says that Josh has had time to throw this year is really amazing. And I don't know. I know it sounds weird when you say like, oh, he's had so much time to throw this year. That's not because he's sitting back in the pocket with a lot of protection. He's had time to throw because he's looking for people to throw to, and he doesn't have it. He needs answers earlier in the down. Our buddy at Cover One, Eric Turner, who I do some work with, did a really nice breakdown watching all of Curtis Samuel snaps. And he says, look, this is still a guy who can understand zone concepts, get to a spot, get there quickly, turn around. We also know he can run pretty fast, but he is 32 years old. So I'm not looking at him now, Matt, as a deep threat down the field, although he can offer that. I'm looking at him as a guy that, hey, when Josh Allen's 5th foot hits on a drop back, can he get open somewhere for me to throw it?
Yeah, slants, right? Quick breaking stuff. It feels like that's probably what they're going to use him as, and I think that's why Bills fans might roll their eyes, because they're like, oh, great, a lack of verticality, not somebody who is going to try and stretch the field. But I think that's ultimately, because I saw the same stuff that Eric posted from Cover One that was really interesting, and I thought it was very, very insightful, because when you first hear Brandin Cooks' name, at least me, I go, oh, vertical deep threat, somebody who is going to stretch the field. Maybe that's the way that they quickly get him into the mix, kind of like they did with Mecole Hardman. like that deep shot they took to McCole Hardman, just because that's kind of easy to get somebody up to speed on. But maybe this is the and I say long term, right? The rest of the season vision for Brandin Cooks is kind of things that are in that 5 to 10 intermediate passing range, which is an area where they have not had a ton of success this year.
No, that's right. I mean, I'm looking now. I can't even find. I went to Over the Cap. I'll go to Spot Track now just to look at what he was making this year. What his contract, I believe, only a 1-year deal when he was on at New Orleans. Just to make sure, 1.25 base salary. So he's pretty much making the minimum. So you're kind of paying peanuts, right? But that's all you have right now if you're Brandon Beane. And I get it. Like, look, the reaction to Brandin Cooks signing is predictable and understandable from fans, which is, yeah, here we go. I mean, oh my God, what are you going to do? It's Brandin Cooks. I get all that. I also know that there's those same fans are probably saying, you got to try something. You got to do something. Well, they're trying something. I don't know how much it's going to work or what it's going to do for this team, but they're trying something and they have very limited resources to be able to do that something. Before we bring on Andrew Fillipponi, who's going to join us from 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh, also the host of the First and Pod with Patrick Peterson. The Bills made another move. We talked about this briefly last episode. Shaq Lawson is back.
You know, Brandin Cooks overshadowed Shaq Lawson for me, that I kind of forgot about it. And then when you just said it again, I was like, oh, yeah, wow, that is a thing that had happened. Yeah. So, yeah, Shaq Lawson is back. This is his third go-around with the Bills. He last year, I believe, only played in one game with the Carolina Panthers. So this is not somebody who has been playing a ton of football. That said, I am sure he still remembers the system. He knows the system here, and he is on the practice squad. So I wonder if this is just a break glass in case of emergency, or if this spells like a bigger issue with the defensive line, whether that be an injury, whether that be the lack of confidence they have. I mean, another great points. You know, we have our Monday show with Howard, Simon, and Joe Biscaglia, and Joe brought up, as you did too the other day, the TJ Sanders playing out of position, like TJ Sanders playing edge. And it's like, well, what do you think is the better option? TJ Sanders playing out of position, or somebody who is actually that position, who you think knows the defense probably even better than TJ Sanders does at this point. So here's
what I don't understand, though, because I'll be the first to tell you, people say to me, why they sign a guy? And we know this, why they sign this guy. And the answer is we know why, because he knows the system. You might not like the answer. You might think he's going to not help, but that's why they do it. But Andre Jones was here all year. They let him go. He's been here as a practice squad guy. Like what? Like, to me, that's what I think about. Like, there's got to be some skill set difference why you would bring Shaq Lawson in off the street, but release a guy who's been with you anyway since the offseason, who's been here working in practice squad and, you know, knowing the system basically.
Does there? Because this is a common theme. Like, your logic makes sense, but then we think about all of the times this happens with Jordan Poyer, with Jordan Phillips, with Tre'Davious White, with all of these guys who have left and then ultimately come back. So there just feels like there is some sort of affinity to these players who have either been here or add Gabe Davis to that list, by the way. But there's some sort of thing with guys who have gone and then ultimately come back that I don't know. I just
wonder why, like, what's the difference between Shaq Lawson, who hasn't played in a year, and Andre Jones, who was on your practice squad all year until now?
Because in the sequel to the Hallmark movie, when the Bills win the Super Bowl, all of these fan favorites will be there to hoist the Lombardi trophy.
Okay, there you go.
That's probably what it is, of like, hey, you know who deserves another swing at this? Shaq Lawson. He was great for us. Like, hey, you know who we should call? Tre'Davious White. We should call him. I bet he'd come back. Maybe that's what it is.
Speaking of Tre'Davious White, I mean, he's still starting, but we'll see what happens this week with Max Hairston, who still is in concussion protocol as of us recording this, because Sean McDermott has not spoken to the media yet. That'll be on Wednesday morning. We'll hear from him before we get to they get to practice. But go ahead.
The big injury storyline. Do we think it's like Spencer Brown?
Well, that's the other move they made. So Tylan Grable has been. I find this interesting too. So he has had his window opened. And I would think, because of the numbers, unless you want Chase Lunt active on Sunday, you're going to have Tylan Grable active. I'm assuming Spencer Brown is not playing based on what Sean McDermott said the other day. So here's how it works, folks. This is an interesting quirk in the rules of the NFL. All right. You only get 46 active on game day unless you activate 8 offensive linemen, whichever team does. Then if you activate 8 offensive linemen, you get 48 active. So why wouldn't you do it? Everybody's going to do it. Well, who are your 8 for the Bills? Typically, it's Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, David Edwards, Alec Anderson, Ryan Vandermark, and Cedric Van Pran Granger. That's your 8. They never have Chase Lunt active. Well, if you're not going to have Spencer Brown, that gives you 7. Either you're going with Chase Lunt or you're putting Tylan Grable on that field on Sunday.
I think that there's a possibility of that. And I also think there's an outside chance that Tylan Grable plays. Now, I don't know if they would immediately throw. Yeah, I don't think so.
So who gets cut? Because see, that's what now I'm going to go back to the receiver point. Because Grable's on the 53 IR, not on the practice squad IR.
Mm-hmm.
You activate him, someone's got to go, as they said with the Brandles one time.
I don't know. I don't know what they would do.
And that could be an IR guy. That could be Curtis Samuel. That's the reason why you signed Brandin Cooks, right?
Yeah, it could be Spencer Brown going on injured reserve.
Could be Spencer Brown on injured reserve. That's exactly right.
It could be Spencer Brown going on injured reserve.
Oh boy, that'd be 4 games without Spencer Brown, and they have Myles Garrett coming up on their schedule too. By the way,
they have TJ Watt coming up on their schedule. They have Myles Garrett coming up on their schedule. Yeah. So like that would be a massive problem for them. So we shall see. It feels like with Spencer Brown, he kept playing after the injury, but you could clearly see that he was not himself while he was playing. So I don't know. Sometimes you can dissect it a little bit of like, when we had the Joey Bosa conversation about, hey, Joey Bosa played the last defensive snap of the game. That usually means that player is at least like relatively fine. Spencer Brown was taken out of the game because he could just not play anymore. So maybe this is a couple week injury. Maybe they need the flexibility and they put him on IR. Because like if the doctors come back and they're like, hey, it's maybe 3 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, you put him on IR just because you probably need the flexibility with your roster. If the doctors come back and they're like, he could play in 2 weeks, then you wouldn't put him on IR and you would just try and figure it out for a week or two. So Spencer Brown is the big notable injury that I think we're waiting to find out on. That's Wednesday. And then Dalton Kincaid. Because this is a different offense when Dalton Kincaid plays.
100% different. And by the way, and I believe we should have Andrew Fillipponi joining us here. And if that is the case, and when that is the case, I want to ask him. I read something today about how tight ends have hurt the Steelers this year. Mm-hmm. So obviously getting Dalton Kincaid back would be a big benefit for the Bills because, as you said, he just helps the Bills offense a lot. He's the way it flows. Mm-hmm. But also maybe this particular opponent, there'd be a matchup that the Bills could, take advantage of against the Steelers. So that's another one. And you're right, Dalton Kincaid, he's a guy we're going to be monitoring. Fedarian Mathis, defensive tackle, he's a guy we're monitoring. And then Curtis Samuel, those are the 3 guys. The 2 that we don't think are going to play, Spencer Brown and Terrell Bernard, which I will say, at least Sean McDermott saying week to week, it doesn't have to be promising saying that. It could still be out long-term. But Matt, that looked so bad when it happened that I thought he was done for the year at the time. And it doesn't appear through the wording that might be the case. We never know. Mm-hmm. But they're not going to have Terrell Bernard at least for this game, and that means Shaq Thompson's going to play middle linebacker, which isn't the worst thing in the world the way he's played this year. But it's still you're still dipping into your depth.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as the Steelers are concerned, left tackle Broderick Jones out. That is their starting left tackle, and then their defensive tackle Derek Harmon, who is their first round pick, he is also out with an injury. So notable injuries as far as the Steelers are concerned. However, Aaron Rodgers looks like he's going to play, and then DK Metcalf was limited with an ankle injury, but the fact that he's already practicing this week, even as a limited participant, gives me kind of makes you think that he'll be available on Sunday.
Yeah, most likely. Bills, Steelers, 4:25 p.m. They're getting the Nance, Romo, and Wolfson treatment on CBS Sunday at 4:25. I've taken a peek, as you know, as a sideline reporter. I have become the world's greatest amateur meteorologist to try and check on weather well in advance. And it looks like could be a little bit of rain, could be a little bit of snow. We'll see about this weekend. In the meantime, let's bring in our good buddy, Andrew Fillipponi from 93.7 and Odyssey Station, The Fan in Pittsburgh, and host of the First and Pod with Patrick Peterson. Pony, what is going on at Sal Matt?
I'm going to the Sabres game tomorrow night. I don't know if that tickles your fancy at all.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know what?
They're coming to town.
I would say, Matt, would you agree? The Steelers and Bills are kind of, I know it's different in the standings, kind of similar to Sabres and Penguins right now. They're both battling for a little bit of a spot here. You know what I mean?
Penguins are good.
Are they, Pony? Are they good?
They're way better than we thought. I mean, I thought they were going to be in the Gavin McKenna lottery, and I wanted them to be. And instead, I think they're going to be one of these teams that kind of fights it out and is on the bubble for the playoffs, which is really less than ideal, given where they're at as a franchise right now. I don't think Kyle Dubas wants that. So it's going to be my daughter's first game where I think she can like talk and communicate with me to like give me feedback and takes on what's going on. The only time she went to a game was right after she was born, and she had like the noise canceling headphones on and all that business. And we were close enough where I was just scared to death the entire time that a puck was going to come into the crowd. So
that would answer my next question. I was going to ask you, and I'm assuming now you are not going out in Pittsburgh on the biggest bar night of the year. I mean, that is the biggest bar night of the year, the night before Thanksgiving. The Sabres used to host all the time here, but they don't anymore. And I don't know if that's because it got too wild on the biggest bar night of the year, but no, I don't know, but I know it is that. So obviously you're going to go with your daughter, you're going to go home. Then are you going to go out and hang out in Pittsburgh on the biggest bar night of the year?
No, that tradition died in my household several years ago. The Wednesday night before Thanksgiving is my wife giving me a checklist of things that we need to do to get done to host Thanksgiving the next day now. So,
man, so you've got an eventful little stretch here. So obviously we are here talking about the Bills and Steelers game. I think here in Buffalo, when we talk about the Steelers, you know, these last couple of years, they've always been a good team these last couple of years, but I don't think anybody fears the Steelers in Buffalo. That's at least from the outside looking in. How good are the Steelers? I know that's a very simple question, but how good are the Steelers?
They're not very good. They've been a mediocre team for a very long time that gets to 9 or 10 wins and then is cannon fodder for whatever team plays them in the wild card round. Mm-hmm. And I feel like at various points this year, there's been this hope and optimism in Pittsburgh that because the rest of the AFC is suffering from this strange disease where the teams that we think are the best are losing a lot of games this year, and the teams that we didn't think were going to be any good seem to be at the top of their divisions, that this year could be different. And Aaron Rodgers got off to a hot start, and that gave everybody, I think, some false hope too, that this year was going to be different from all the rest. But no, they're not that good. Their defense is big time underachieved when you think about the name power and the money that they've spent on it. Their offense is dependent on a 41-year-old quarterback to turn back the clock and DK Metcalf to be a great receiver, and he has not been, based on the lack of help and support he has in the offense and the way teams roll coverage to him. So right now, they're just a team that's in purgatory, and they win a game, they lose a game, they win a game, they lose a game, and the fans here are sick of doing that for really every year since 2017.
What are the reasons for their deficiencies? You just talked about their highly paid defense. I'm looking at their rankings. It feels like they've really underperformed on that side of the ball, despite having guys who should be able to get to the passer. And they haven't been that bad at it, maybe a little inconsistent. What have been the issues with the Pittsburgh Steelers this year on that side of the ball?
Well, it started early in the season. They couldn't stop the run. That was like the number one issue right out of the gate against teams like the Jets and the Seahawks, the first 2 games of the season. Then they got Derek Harmon back from injury, their first round pick, and that seemed to stabilize that for a little bit. But when it's like the Dutch boy at the dike. Like when you put your finger in one hole, then the bunch of water squirts out another. And that's really been the issue for them outside of maybe 2 or 3 games this year. They had secondary issues. At the beginning of the year, their excuse was, well, we've got a lot of new guys back there. So that's why communication is such a problem. And that's why we can't seem to get on the same page. So their remedy for that was taking Jalen Ramsey, who initially Mike Tomlin was talking about how, this is going to be our queen on the chessboard. He's going to play everywhere. He's going to play nickel. He's going to play linebacker. He's going to play outside corner. He's going to play safety. And they got to a point where they said, screw it. We're just going to put him at free safety. And that worked up until, I would say, this game against the Bears, where Ben Johnson, to his credit, exposed their safeties for the first time this year. They brought Kyle Duggar over at the trade deadline, and he shockingly played really well. Had an interception, pick six against the Bengals. Helped in run support, wasn't exposed in coverage. He was against the Bears. He gave up a touchdown very early in that game to Loveland. And, you're paying TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons money. And he's been good this year, but he has not been defensive player of the year caliber. And I think, you need your best players to be your best players. And I don't even think on some Sundays, I think Nick Herbig's been a better pass rusher than him. So that's really a long-winded way of saying, Sal, I could keep going. But this defense really has been this was supposed to be a defense that was up there with the Texans and Rams and Broncos and Eagles for the best in the NFL. And they're nowhere near that more than halfway through the season.
If you're the Bills and you are game planning for this game, their Bills offense against the Steelers defense, hearing what you said about the Steelers run defense with Derek Harmon, and now if Derek Harmon is going to be out of this game, should the Bills just be trying to control this game on the ground? Or do you feel like the deficiencies in the secondary are where the Bills should be attacking? Obviously, like, you've got Josh Allen, you've got James Cook, you've got two different ways you can approach this, but it feels like this year a big focus for the Bills has been trying to run the ball and just take shot plays when they open themselves up.
Yeah, it's a good question because, the Colts came in here a few weeks ago and the Steelers defensively lined up to stop the run and loaded the box. And Shane Steichen's strategy was, all right, whatever. We've got all kinds of receivers in Tyler Warren. I'll just put the ball in Daniel Jones's hands. And that was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
They turned the ball over 6 times in that game. So Mike Tomlin forced their hand there and got them to go away from their best player and what they do best. It was almost Belichickian, actually, on Tomlin's part. And I actually give him credit for the way they approached that game and attacked that game.
You don't do very much, Pony. You do not give Mike Tomlin a lot of credit.
No, and I should. I mean, when you're going on 8 years without a playoff win, I don't think there's a lot of franchises that would put up with that and tolerate that. And, when you're making $20 million a year, your expectations should be much higher than just scraping by and being the 6 seed or 7 seed in the playoffs every year. But no, I mean, I thought that was a brilliant move and it worked. And I thought the Colts were a little overrated because they hadn't really played a true outdoor road game yet. What I would say about the Bills, having watched the entire Texans game and still watching just about every snap of every game, is based on how Dawkins and Brown did against Hunter and Anderson, I would not be enthusiastic about asking Josh Allen to drop back and throw it 30 times versus, even though I just ripped Watt, against Watt and Herbig, and maybe Highsmith comes back and plays, and you still have Cam Hayward who can get pass rush up the middle, and you still have wide receivers that I think struggle to get open consistently. Yeah. So the irony, just for a second, that was interesting, Tomlin said this at his press conference today. He talked about how the Bills do such a good job of attacking the middle of the field and using their tight ends, which is ironic because the Steelers have an offense that's built out of tight ends, and they use the middle of the field less than any team in the NFL. Like, it was a weird – Tomlin didn't get it, I don't think, when he said it, that it was actually like a critique of himself by complimenting what the Bills do offensively to beat teams.
Well, that said, we're monitoring Dalton Kincaid this week because he has missed the last couple of games. He could come back this week. Did I read correctly that the Steelers have struggled against tight ends this year, that teams have some pretty good numbers tight end wise against the Steelers, and that could be a matchup where the Bills might want to go?
Well, like I said, I would have told you, before Halloween that was a no-brainer. Yeah. I mean, they brought Juan Thornhill over from the Browns to play free safety when they let Minka go in that Ramsey trade, because last year their free safety was playing 30 yards off the line of scrimmage. And I think they figured, if we're going to just have a guy back there as the last line of defense, why are we paying somebody so much money to do that? And so they brought in a guy who had done that in Kansas City and got cut by the Browns, and he was so awful here, they cut him a couple of weeks ago. And they completely revamped their defensive look, and that's when they moved Ramsey back there. And I do think that that's helped them against tight ends. I'll go back to the Colts game. Warren did nothing against them. Warren had his worst game of the year against the Steelers. Their corners are in flux for this game. Darius Slay, who they signed from the Eagles, has been awful. and he lost his job before he got concussed a couple weeks ago. They've got a journeyman corner, James Pierre, who's been on this roster since 2020, is like an extra guy and a special teams player. And he actually finally got a shot and played well. And they stuck with him, and he played in the Bears game. And Joey Porter Jr. is the other outside corner. He got hurt in that game. And so there's some question over whether they're going to elevate Asante Samuel Jr. from the practice squad from this game, who came off of that spinal fusion surgery. And Tomlin's very evasive when it comes to practice squad guys. Like, they signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling a few weeks ago, and he gets asked about it all the time, and it bothers him. Like, he downplays, like he wants there to be, in the way he publicly talks about players, a difference between active roster guys and practice squad guys. He's not obligated to talk about practice squad guys, and he makes that very clear. But today he did acknowledge that Samuel is not your prototypical practice squad guy, which leads me to believe that there's a chance he actually makes his debut in this season against the Bills.
Wow. Interesting. That's definitely a name that we're very familiar with in Buffalo, because the cornerback concerns that Bills have had for years, he was a name that people always had circled. When they signed Aaron Rodgers, we had the chance to see him a couple times when he was with the Jets. And I think we were kind of in Buffalo like, all right, he's okay. Like, how has he been this year? Is it the same? Like, yeah, he's okay.
September, he was the MVP of the team, and they wouldn't have won the Jets game. They needed to pull that win out. And it's crazy in retrospect to think that game required a 60-yard field goal to beat a hapless team that has forced only one turnover the entire year and has gone, they benched a $30 million quarterback who the Steelers had last season. But Fields was great in that game, and Rodgers threw for 4 touchdowns. They went to New England, which is probably the win of the year for them, even more than the Colts game, looking back on it. He was great on the opening drive, touchdown drive, and then had a drive to win it at the end of the game. So, the numbers, he was on track to throw 40 touchdown passes a few weeks ago, which would be far and away a Steelers record, more than Ben ever did. But something changed. I would say the Green Bay second half, I think like a check engine light came on.
Yeah.
And then he was absolutely awful in the LA game against the Chargers on a Sunday night, where it just never looked like mentally he was in the game, which is weird to say about a quarterback who's played as many games and will go into the Hall of Fame someday with 4 MVP awards. And, even the game they won against the Colts that I keep referencing, like, they won that game because of 6 turnovers. He had to do very little in that game. There's all kinds of wild conspiracies, as you come to expect with Rodgers, about what the heck happened with him with the Bears game. And then Mike Tomlin came out right after the game. There was a Jay Glazer report. Those two are best friends. And there was a Rodgers report. And then he came out after the same game and said, I anticipate Rodgers being ready. That's what Mike said right after the game. I anticipate him being ready for the Bills game.
Saw that. Yep.
Saying a completely different tune at his press conference today.
Really?
I mean, he used terminology like there's great optimism, we're hopeful, time will tell. I mean, it's almost the type of stuff like your aunt says about like a sick relative. Like, here's all these positive platitudes and things we'll say. We're like, we're thinking positively about it, but you don't actually have any clue if the person's going to get better or not. And that's kind of how I took what Tomlin said today. Adam Schefter went on ESPN radio last week, and I thought made a very astute observation about Rodgers. And he was talking about the injury that he suffered in the game against the Bengals. And he pointed out, look, I can't get any information on this because of the way that Rodgers closes ranks and how prickly he is about injuries and about his own well-being and privacy and everything else. And I think that's why Tomlin has been so odd about the way he's talked about Rodgers' injuries. I mean, he came right out today and said Broderick Jones and Derek Harmon aren't playing on Sunday. Yeah. And with Rodgers, he just won't get pinned down on anything. And I honestly don't think it's gamesmanship. I think it is more to do with the way that Rodgers wants his injury status and health for a game to be talked about. So it's very strange. I guess what I'm telling you guys is don't be surprised if you see Mason Rudolph again on Sunday.
Wow.
when he does play, he has the lowest depth of target passing in the league. And it's really low. Is this just the offense? Is it a wide receiver issue? Is it a Aaron Rodgers issue? Is it a scheme? Why do the Steelers just want to keep everything so short?
Because Tomlin doesn't want risk in his offense.
Right.
He wants to win with defense. I mean, to be honest with you, like there are some parallels between, I know obviously you guys have Josh Allen, so it's a lot different, but I do think that Tomlin and McDermott have a lot of things in common. I really do. I think they're very, very similar coaches.
Yep.
Tomlin, since Ben left, it's like he was waiting for, like Belichick with Brady, like he was waiting to take over the team and have it in his likeness. And one of the philosophical things that has shifted big time since Ben left has been, all right, our offensive strategy now is going to be, let's not turn the ball over and let's wait for the other team to make mistakes. And the numbers and percentages show that if you win the turnover battle, you're going to win the game. And everything the Steelers do is focused on that. So there's barely any throws over the middle of the field because that's where they believe turnovers happen. There are fewer throws downfield because they think those are riskier plays because they take time to develop. Quarterbacks can get sacked. Quarterbacks can fumble. There are lower percentage throws where interceptions can happen. If there's a deep throw downfield, it's to the sideline where the sideline is your friend and it's not over the middle of the field. It's crazy. And I would say, I get asked questions all the time about this. Go look it up with every quarterback they've had since Ben left. We were told last year, well, they only do this because that's all Russell Wilson can do. He can only throw deep down the sideline. He can't see over the middle of the field, and he can dink and dunk and throw moon balls. That's it. Justin Fields, well, we got to play it safe with him because he can't read the defense. Mitch Trubisky, well, we know what he is. We can't let him screw the game up. Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett. It's the same thing with every one of these guys. And now it's happening with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I watch Aaron Rodgers. I think his arm is still good. I don't think the arm strength is an issue. I don't think they're playing this way because Aaron can't do it anymore. I think Mike Tomlin signed Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers has the lowest interception percentage in NFL history. And that plays right into what he wants to do, which is not give the ball to the defense. And if we do that, we're going to find a way to win ugly games.
Andrew, is this a must win for the Steelers?
It's awfully close. I mean, I don't want to quite say that because if they lose and Baltimore beats Cincinnati Thanksgiving night, they're a game behind them. And if they beat the Ravens the following week, well, then you're tied with them again and you've got the head-to-head tiebreaker. So in that way, I don't think it is. But when you look at like the Steelers' path to the playoffs and the games that they're probably going to have to win to get there, I think wins at Cleveland, the Monday night game against Miami, there's 2 that gets you to 8 wins. If you split with the Ravens, that's 9. So where do you get the 10th win or the 11th win? And the other games on the schedule are Buffalo here Sunday, at Detroit, at Baltimore. So of those 3 games, if I'm going to pick one that the Steelers are going to win, I would pick this game Sunday against the Bills rather than at Baltimore or at Detroit.
How big of a deal is Broderick Jones being out?
I don't think it's a very big one.
Okay.
I think he's improved this year. But that's such a low bar. I mean, he was ticketed for bust. I mean, I still don't think there's any way they're going to pick up his 5th-year option. I think they'll make him play out the 4th year and see if he's the guy or not. I don't think the money that's tied into that number for a left tackle for a 5th year where he was drafted is just, $20 million. They can't do that with him. He's not that kind of player. So I think that, look, we'll see. I mean, among their offensive linemen, if I'm ranking the 5, I think he's the worst one, which is a bad thing because he plays the most important position on the offensive line.
Last one for me. When you think about this game and you think about the Steelers and the Bills, and, I know it's a tough place to play and all of this stuff. How did the Steelers win this game? If the Steelers win, how did they win this game?
The Steelers are going to win this game the way that they beat the Bengals and the Colts and the way that they've scored their best and most impressive wins of the season. They're going to do it very similarly to the way the Texans did it. They're going to harass Josh Allen. They're going to hit him a lot. They're going to limit James Cook in the run game, which is what they did to Jonathan Taylor, what they did to Chase Brown the second time around. And they're going to make his game a living nightmare, is what they're going to do. And they're going to get extra possessions with turnovers, and they're going to win it that way. I mean, I don't see them winning a shootout. Okay. If Josh Allen is dialed in and the Bills are going up and down the field on them, like the Packers did in the second half, where Jordan Love converted 20 consecutive passes in a row, they're not winning that game. Their way to win this game is to make it look like the Falcons road game for the Bills, or the Dolphins road game for the Bills, or the game that we saw last Thursday night, which, I think that they're actually capable of doing. I don't think that that's out of the question for them by any means. So I think it starts there. And if that part of the game is missing, then look out, because I think the Bills could blow them out.
Yeah, I don't think Bills fans would disagree that could happen to them. All right, Andrew, got one more for you. I listened and watched your stream on October 17th, that morning, on my way to WGR to do my radio show, because I had to find out what was going on with the nipples after the night before.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think Matt might know the story. He might not, but
I don't know anything about the nipples.
Okay. Andrew went viral because he made a bold prediction about the Thursday night game between the Bengals and Steelers, and guaranteed the Steelers would win by a lot. And if they didn't, he said, if not, I will get my nipples pierced without lubricant. Wow. So the next
numbing agent.
What?
Numbing agent.
Numbing it. Thank you. Without numbing. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining it.
Yeah.
You should have explained it, not me, but this is why I said I got to listen. So on my way to WGR, I made sure it was an amazing radio, first of all.
Thank you.
And I give you credit, second of all, and especially because you did it for a great cause. But can you give us an update on the nipples?
So I had them pierced, I think 2 weeks later than the game, on a Wednesday night. We sold out a bar here in Pittsburgh. They actually had to turn people away at the door. That's how kinky our listeners are, where they wanted to see a man get his nipples pierced in person. And I had them in the next day, which is probably when you might have listened, or maybe you saw it happen that night. Either way, both were streamed. And then I took them out. So yeah, that was Halloween, was that Friday. And one of the things they told me, the person that pierced it, the professional who we brought in, but then of course that whole week or two leading up to it, our radio station was taken over by people who had had their nipples pierced, calling in and texting in. And one of the things that I heard a lot was it, like you've got like a metal kind of small bar through your nipple.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel it when you go outside and trick or treat if it's cold. Like that bar is going to get cold, and it is going to be like unlike any kind of like chill you felt in your body before. And I was not going to ruin my daughter's trick or treating because I was dumb enough to make a stupid bet on Twitter. So my next door neighbor's a doctor, and she came over and took them out that afternoon. And I will say, for the non-pierced nipple people out there watching or listening to this, it's incredible how quickly your body recovers from that. Like, you'd have no way of knowing right now from looking at them, and I have no way of knowing from feeling them, that I ever had my nipples pierced. So if you do make that bet, the piercing process is going to suck a lot. But once you get them out, your body's going to pretty much go back to normal. So
I didn't know anything about this, and I'm so happy that you brought it up. The dedication is phenomenal. Good for you.
Thank you.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And you guys did it for a great cause too, right?
Yeah, we raised a bunch of money for breast cancer awareness because it was October, and that was breast cancer awareness month. So yeah, like people wanted to make fun of me for it and rip me for it, but they're like, oh shoot, I can't do this anymore because you're actually helping people fight cancer. So that really was a great shield for me throughout all this. And I was happy to help people who need it, obviously.
I'm glad you didn't say anything else would get pierced if Syracuse lost to Houston or Kansas, because that obviously happened in Vegas.
How about if they, 70-7 to Notre Dame too?
Oh my God. I know. Yeah. I went to the Pitt homecoming game at Syracuse, obviously, and Pitt, and you follow that program, you follow both programs. And I mean, they actually played okay, but no quarterback, no Angeli. But that last Saturday was very embarrassing. 21 points without an offensive snap I've never seen in my life.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I used to go when I was living up there with in Buffalo. I used to still drive the 2.5 hours or so and go to games all the time. It's just, the thing that's so depressing to me now about the state of their athletic programs is like, I think because they're in the ACC too, like the standards and the expectations have been watered down so much. Like I have my alumni friends and buddies from school who are texting me during the basketball game the other night against Houston, and they're like ecstatic that they lost a game in overtime.
Yeah.
Like that's where things are for them. It's like, hey, we lost a close game. We're back. We're on the comeback trail. And it's just like, so having grown up with that program and Boeheim and everything, it's just like so sad. Like I can't, like I don't even like deducing, like getting myself excited. Like I can't do that anymore. Like I can't allow myself to be that kind of fan who does cartwheels over overtime losses to teams. So,
well, you got
take.
You say hi to Alan Green for us over there, the Pitt AD. He used to be here at the University of Buffalo. Really nice guy. And
really,
yeah. He used to
I didn't know that.
Alan's good. I saw him actually on the field that day when I went to the homecoming game. I went down to say hi to a guy named Penny who works for the Bills. He was being honored by Pitt. He played for Penny Samara.
Yeah, Penny Samaya. I know him very well. Yeah.
Okay, great guy. And he was with Alan, so I said hi. Alan's a really good guy, and I think the Pitt athletic program's in good hands. I think Syracuse football's in good hands with Fran Brown, but they have to obviously get a better quarterback next year, or at least a healthy quarterback, I should say. Have fun at the Sabres game and against the Penguins.
What a disaster they are, by the way. I just can't.
I could talk about the Sabres for hours. It's an absolute mess. It's unbelievable. And then, Andrew, there's people here in Buffalo who are like, oh, the Bills, if they lose in the first round or if they miss the playoffs, are going to fire their head coach or their general manager. And I'm like, do you guys know who owns the Buffalo Bills? The same guy who owns the Buffalo Sabres, where the general manager has been the same guy for 5 years, where they have 6 years. They just continue to get worse and worse and worse. Now, the one thing is, like, this team isn't a complete disaster, and they're actually starting to get healthy. So maybe there's something there. But at the same time, like, come on. Yeah. Like, what are we doing? This is it's the same thing over and over and over.
I actually brought this is a quick story.
Okay.
So Howard was off on vacation, Howard Simon. Oh, no, that's wrong. I got the story wrong already. My bad. Jeremy White was on vacation.
Okay.
So it's me and Howard doing mornings one day. And they used to have a deal on GR where Lindy would come on once a week.
Still do. He does that again now with Jeremy.
Okay. So, and by the way, on a personal level, I like Lindy. I wish he was a better coach in 2025, 2026. I wish he was still built for the NHL now, but that's kind of besides the point.
Right.
So he comes on with us and I tell him that I have a crazy idea. And I'm like, look, I have an idea that like you guys need to bring up the next time there's a board of governors meeting or a competition committee or whatever, you need to run this by the NHL. And he's like, give it to me. And I tell him, I'm like, look, in the NFL, a game can't end on a defensive penalty. If there's pass interference at the end of a game, it doesn't just end there. The team gets an extra play. And I said to him, if a team was down a goal and they were on the power play, they should get the full 2 minutes of the power play, even if it exceeds and goes past.
I love that.
The end of the game.
I love that.
Yeah.
And he said he would bring it up. And he came on like a month later and said he did, but it didn't go anywhere. I have a hard time believing that he did bring it up. But
I like that idea, though. That's right.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Jeremy has been on the 3-2-1 point system for many, many years. He wants the 3-2-1, right? Like they do internationally. And I agree. Like it's stupid the way they do it now.
Agreed.
3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for overtime.
He's right about that.
Yeah, I he's still on that for sure. Pony, thanks. We kept you along. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
The fan, awesome station. First and Pod with Pat Peterson. That's a great podcast. I'm sure you have fun with Pat all the time, right?
I do. Pat and I make all kinds of side wagers and bets and stuff. And his text chain we have, I wish I could just read on our podcast sometimes because I'd love it. I don't think some NFL players and coaches would, but it's great to have the perspective of somebody who was as good as him in the NFL for as long as he was. So yeah, we have a great time.
Probably a safe bet that your daughter's first game where she's going to like know what's going on is going to be a win as the Penguins take on the Sabres, but who knows? I guess maybe we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that with them. This Penguins team is not very good, but they do still have Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang, which is insane.
Yeah, that helps. That helps.
Hey, yeah, you got it, man.
Thanks,
Thank
Andrew,
you for coming on. And before we wrap up this episode, I want to say happy birthday to my mom.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Mrs. Thurston. She's remarried. My mom is going to be, I don't care. I'll say it because she's healthy and awesome. And she will be 75 years old on Wednesday. And we might not talk to everybody on Wednesday. And it's the day before Thanksgiving. Sometimes her birthday falls on Thanksgiving. This year it does not, but it's awesome. And, she and my stepdad moved back to Buffalo about 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. They were in Florida. They were in Georgia. They came back here, and partly because she wanted to be around Max as he was getting older, and they go to every hockey game and every baseball game.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Happy birthday to her.
Yes.
And happy Thanksgiving to any, if we don't talk to you before then, happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to Mike. Happy Thanksgiving to Andrew, who just got off. We're thankful for so many things. Thankful that anybody is listening and watching this, and we hope you have an amazing holiday and filled with fun, family, friends, and a little bit of football too.